who's on the line. I've switched host over so he can start the YouTube stream. He just has to switch me back so I can let more people in.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Hey, Jennifer, this is Tracy. I just spoke with Andrew. He's getting it set up.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. And I'm admitting people for you.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
There you go. All right, Ross.
You have competition. I saw him
Like
earlier.
one-upping.
Together.
I mean, let the record show this is not today. It was not yesterday. But this is better times.
I just want to know how you impose a person who looks like you on that board.
Yeah, I'm impressed it was anytime.
Guys, there's a team of some of the world's best Photoshop artists. It takes a lot. This is cool.
You give a bunch of boys some toys to play with and just imagine what we can do, you know?
Yeah.
Did you win your bride that way, council member?
No, that was just that's a whole nother story.
I think there's a couple bottles of champagne.
That's for a beer. That's for a beer too.
Yeah.
We gave good directions. That's how we.
Oh no.
I can't see.
How about this?
Oh, I see it.
That's good. That's good. That's good.
City Hall behind him.
There you go.
I'm at City Hall. I'm sticking with that story. All right.
I'd rather have Mr. Giroux.
5:30. Thank you all for coming in on a late Friday afternoon. And Madam Clerk, would you like to call the roll? I'm going to call this meeting to order.
Councilwoman Del Chapo.
Here.
Councilmember Shealy.
Here.
Councilmember Saccharin.
Here.
Councilmember Mitchell. Councilmember Mitchell. Councilmember Brady.
Present.
Councilmember Gregory.
Here.
Councilmember Waring. Councilmember Seekings.
Here.
Councilmember Shade.
Present.
Councilmember Griffin. I know I saw him. Councilmember Griffin.
Here.
Councilmember Appel.
Here.
Councilwoman Jackson.
Here.
Mayor Tecklenburg.
Here.
Council Mitchell is here too.
Okay.
Member Mitchell signed on.
Thank you.
So y'all may have heard this prayer. I'm going to share with you. Rich Robinson of the Coastal Crisis Chaplaincy wrote this prayer for our community. O God of our holy city, we pray for a healthy city, be the strength for our vulnerable, be the healing for our ill, and be the protection for our first responders, healthcare workers, and government servants. Our God, provide for our neighbors who cannot work at home and protect those who must work out of the home. In our social distancing, may our neighbors know they are not alone. As we separate, may we be close in spirit. May we share our care for one another through intentional acts of peace and prevention, and may our hope be what is contagious. Amen.
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 Nice prayer. So Friday afternoon, beautiful day, but another difficult week as we've worked through a lot more decisions about the coronavirus crisis, and we watched around the country and the world how the numbers keep escalating. Over 1 million in the world, almost a quarter of which are here in the United States now, over 250,000 in the United States. So this is a marathon, not a short distance run. We're going to be with this for a little while. Shannon Scaff, you're out there somewhere. Do you have that puppy with you?
He's in the back, sir.
Okay. Shannon texted me a picture of his new puppy, and he is one adorable young lab, I can tell you that. Anyway, Shannon, if you give us a report for today, I'd appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of council. I start these off and I give you these numbers every day, and I'm going to do that today, but I do want to start by first saying that we are going to get through this together. And I said earlier during this press conference how proud I am, and I've said that every night with you all, how proud I am of this team, and I mean that. And we're going to get through this. We don't know when it's going to end, but we're going to get through this together. It is a marathon, and we're going to make it to the end of this thing, and we're going to be okay. I'll briefly go over the objectives again. And by the way, with regard to these objectives, if you think of anything that we need to add to these objectives, I am all ears. These have served well, but as this crisis continues to unfold, it may shape into additional objectives. So I'm open to any of your suggestions as far as that goes. Number one, maintain situational awareness of all COVID-19 cases in the city of Charleston. 2, limit exposure to the COVID-19 virus. 3, keep order in the city. 4, preserve the city government workforce. And 5, assist the medical community in mitigation of the COVID-19 virus. Worldwide, per Johns Hopkins, we're at 1,083,084 COVID cases and 58,243 dead. That's as of 4:30, about an hour ago. The United States, 266,671 with 6,921 dead as of 4:30, again, per Johns Hopkins. In South Carolina, according to DHEC, there are now 1,700 cases statewide. This exceeds the 1,573 total cases that the DHEC consultant, you'll remember I briefed you all a few days ago about a consultant that had been working with DHEC, and he had made some projections. That projection, basically he said by April 4th, we would be at that 1,573. And so today, a day early, we've already exceeded it. Currently, there are 34 confirmed deaths in South Carolina attributed to COVID-19. Let me give you those revised projections. By April 11th, we'll be at 2,657 total cases. By April 18th, 4,113. By April 25th, 5,919. And by May 2nd in South Carolina, our numbers will look to be around 8,053 total in the state. In Charleston County, currently we have 247 confirmed COVID cases and the 1 death. And in Berkeley County, 42 confirmed cases and still 0 deaths there. So that's good news. With respect to keeping order in the city, Charleston Police Department responded to no calls for large gatherings or crowds over the last 24 hours. City fire of the medical calls Charleston Fire Department was dispatched to or responded to 19 were suspected COVID-19 patients. Garbage service was completed on time Thursday. There are presently 11 apparatus collecting trash and working through the peninsula today. Carolina Waste and Republic Services continue to operate. Trash pickup in West Ashley will begin on Monday. In terms of preserving the workforce, temperature monitoring by City Police, Fire, and Public Works continues as normal. Regarding employee work status, with 1,288 employees accounted for in 15 of 15 departments reporting. On Thursday, we had 39% in the office, 12% working from home, 21% in the field, 21% on leave, 3% on sick leave, and 2% on annual leave. City resource availability. Charleston Police and Fire Departments have reported minor changes in stock for face masks from the previous report. There are currently no issues with police or fire personnel lacking PPE during calls for service. Call volumes remain stable. with no spikes in calls for service. Charleston County received the third of its strategic national stockpile shipments yesterday, and distribution will occur for that next week. Following a 9 a.m. coordination call this morning, the incident management team logistics section today was preparing to make a large order of PPE and cleaning and other supplies intended for city staff. GIS will be tracking department's daily PPE burn rate, which will be fantastic for overall situational awareness for each of us. I'll be reporting on some of that for you. Citizens' concerns as of Thursday afternoon, calls for the citizen service desk continued to average 200 total calls for the day. Calls yesterday included a report about a fake vaccine trial. Copies of the fake document were obtained and submitted to the PIO office. Other topics of concern continue to be residents inquiring about bulk and regular trash collection and parking citations. Hotels and Charleston area. I need to put my glasses on. Charleston Area Convention and Visitors Bureau reports that 94 Charleston area hotels were open today. And one more comment for you. We know that contingencies won't stop in our city despite this COVID-19 pandemic. And it has not escaped me that we are approaching hurricane season. June 1st kicks that off. And in light of that, I want to put together a task force of some of our city leaders to begin to prepare us for hurricane season. And this task force is going to include between 5 and 7 people. We'll talk about logistical matters and begin some of the preparatory work for hurricane season while we're continuing to push forward and navigate the current crisis that we're in. Pending your questions, that's all I have for you this evening.
Councilmember Shade.
And then Shade.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate always your updates, Shannon. Is there any way, I happen to be speaking to an exec with one of the hospitals, local hospitals, and I'm wondering if any way we can get, he told me how many patients they had and with COVID patients in their hospital and how many of them were in ICU. I'm just wondering, can this report include not necessarily one hospital, but of the hospitals in the Tri-County area, how many of them have COVID patients and how many of those patients are in ICU? I just think, in listening to CNN and you see the patients in New York that's got the virus and how many in ICU, it's just one of those things that penetrates. I know it penetrates me. I'm just wondering if, just to help with stay in place when people realize, you mean in our local hospitals we have X amount of patients with the virus and ICU has, another amount, and each day or each time this is reported, unfortunately, it's increasing. As a matter of fact, the hospital is saying that they've seen a spike taking place right now in Charleston County with the admittance on this thing. And I just spoke to him. I got off the phone to make sure I made it in before 5:33 today. So on the call. So I'm just wondering, would DHEC give you that kind of information, or will we have to circle maybe with the CEOs of the various hospitals in particular the Low Country area?
Yes, sir. Thank you for the question. You'll recall that we have embedded city staff members at local hospitals to maintain situational awareness on their just kind of really their day-to-day operations. I know that some of that is sensitive information to the hospitals, but let me see what we can find and keeping the spirit of what they want from us in regards to our folks being there with them. I'll track that down and I'll have an answer for you early next week.
Thank you. That's one reason I didn't call out the person. I didn't call out even the hospital. But I'm telling you, if you live in a certain area and the hospitals that you are familiar with, you go there, your family's gone there, you, in some cases, had children birth there, and you realize you got that many people in the hospital that you know best and in ICU. It has a way of giving a different level of this communication on the seriousness of what we have in front of us. But thank you.
Yes, sir.
So, we'll dig into that. I must share that I meet telephonically with the folks at the MUSC 3 times a week. And this morning, I thought it was positive news that Dr. Cawley said that MUSC, Roper, Trident, East Cooper Medical, they were all getting together today to talk about the current projections that MUSC now has for the low country. And it's a little different than the DHEC statewide projections. They believe that we are in effect flattening the curve a little bit, so that the time may get pushed out a little bit, but the numbers will be less, and that's good. That's very positive. But they are collectively comparing notes and adding numbers to make sure that even with what they predict to be the maximum, that there's enough resources amongst all the hospitals jointly to handle it. So that's, they are working on it. So that, I thought that was positive.
That is positive. Thank you.
Councilmember Shea.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple points I just wanted to bring to everyone's attention, and the numbers that you shared with us, Mayor, and Shannon shared with us a minute ago. I just did some quick calculation. Our American population represents less than 5% of the total global population, that we are now experiencing nationally 25% of those afflicted with this virus. And that just sort of gives us a pretty good perspective of how out of whack we are with the rest of the world. And that does have a trickle effect on our community. Just, I know it does. It has to have some kind of impact on us as to, and what that means, I just don't know. But anyhow, I thought I'd share that with you. When you look at these numbers, it seems we're not in sync with the rest of the world when we got 5% of the total population and 25% of our national populations being afflicted by this. Shannon, you brought up the hurricane season. What is, if I can put you on the spot a little bit, I mean, from my perspective, thinking about hurricanes means storms, winds, flooding, damage of property, loss of life. That's on top of what we're going through right now. And you know, we're meeting every day. We're going through this stuff every day. For us to handle that, for our team to be handling that, is something that's of a concern to me. And Shannon, I'd like to hear your thoughts on that in the event, because what I heard is that this may be a very active hurricane season.
Yes, sir. So I've heard the same thing. The numbers projected, we're going to have an active hurricane season. In fact, I believe we're at one more major hurricane forecasted this year than we were last year. So we need to be ready. And we've got, thanks to the approved budget last year, we've got an additional emergency management specialist that's been hired, and she is slated to report in another week or so. And she's going to begin to take over the planning section chief role in our incident management team. And what that's going to do is it's going to free up Mr. Daniel Flesis, the current emergency management specialist that we have, who isn't going to be going anywhere, thank goodness. He's incredibly talented, and his head is completely wrapped around hurricanes. This guy is he's a force when it comes to preparedness. And I'm going to put him as lead in this task force. And his responsibility will be to go through all current plans, to revisit our hot wash from last year, to take a look at what we've accomplished since the end of hurricane last year and improving, and what still remains to be addressed. And then that's going to be his work list. I would still like to get folks together. I'll find some innovative way to do it, but we will hit pause for some period of time between now and June 1st, and we will have some type of hurricane discussion amongst our leadership. Now, as good as we are, and I feel like we're really good, we're not good enough to stop Mother Nature. But we can do everything we can, given this current crisis, to make ourselves as prepared as we possibly can. I don't think it's going to be ideal, and I am concerned about the vulnerability, but that's why I want to go ahead and start now. Identifying some folks. The fire department has already put somebody on notice to help with this task force. I know police is always right there willing to help with whatever we've got. And we'll identify a few other folks, but their purpose in life between now and June 1st is to get us ready. And that's how I'm going to approach this hurricane season before it starts.
Great. Thank you, Shannon. Again, Councilmember Brady and then Appel.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just had a quick question. I'm sure it's an ongoing investigation, but I was just wondering if there were any updates on the letter that had been sent out in regards to what we had discussed yesterday with the College of Charleston and that type of thing. And just wondering if there was any update on that.
I don't have any. Chief Reynolds, are you on board? Or Shannon, do you happen to know anything on that?
I don't, sir.
Okay. Well, I don't know. The chief said this afternoon that after the one individual came by yesterday and a couple of phone calls, and then our press release went out about it, that nobody else has come by or inquired about signing up for the test. So I still hope we can track down the culprit, the prankster, but you know, I think that the public notice at least squashed it.
Yeah, no, I'm just worried that if we aren't able to track down that person, or at least figure out what was going on, that in this time period of the state of emergency, if people are going to start taking advantage of people, that this may spread if we're not able to do that. So that just something to think about.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Councilmember Appel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I just want to touch on something Councilmember Shea had just mentioned about hurricane preparedness. I mean, think about what we've been trained to do and we've gotten so good at over the last 5 years. Evacuation. Where would we evacuate to? Governor McMaster just shut down every hotel in the state. I've heard that Georgia, their highway patrol is pulling people over with non-Georgia license plates right now. We used to go stay with my brother and sister-in-law in Athens. So, I mean, the whole game plan here is going to be turned upside down. So I'm glad to hear from Shannon that we're going to be looking into those contingencies, because good Lord, I mean, it's going to be a disaster if we have those two things coincide. But my question had to do with the small business loans. There's been a lot in the news this week about the onboarding process for the SBA program with local banks. It appears that some banks are online, others don't really know what's going on. It's just like anything with the federal government. There can be a lot of red tape and obstacles. And I know, Mr. Mayor, you indicated you've been having some conversations with local bankers. Do we have any updates with regards to which banks in the area are sort of locked in and ready to go on this? And can we get that information rolling out as we get it?
We did put out a list of all the SBA approved and affiliated banks, not just locally, but in the state. So we can have Meg send that out. I heard somewhat anecdotally and on the national media, like many of you might have, that it was kind of a rocky start, although it started. I think the main thing with the information to the banks, the local banks, the affiliated banks, didn't go out from what I heard until early this morning. So yeah, most of them I talked to earlier in the week said likely it would be first of next week before they really got rolling, because they didn't anticipate getting the final instructions until, yesterday, or they were hoping to get it before today. But anyway, that's the way it rolled out. But from what I'm told, the message is lend the money out and the Treasury Department will stand up for it. So I don't think there's going to be a lot of red tape. It may be a couple more days to really to get everybody in gear, but I don't think there'll be a lot of red tape if the government is saying that.
Good deal. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, ma'am. Councilmember Jackson.
thank you. I appreciate Councilmember Rappel bringing up that topic. I know it's been sensitive for a variety of reasons that, we're shepherding our own funds as a city and trying to prepare for the downturn that's inevitable in the short term anyway. I do think that there are groups and individuals, and as far as I know, Councilmember Saccharin is one of those who've been trying to sort of, test the waters on how to use these programs and the vehicles that are being, relied on by especially very small business owners who, again, I have to go back to my husband's experience. There weren't enough hours in the day when you're a small business owner to research things, to know what you're doing that is the most strategic and the most realistic. And I was on a webinar today with Next City. That is a very dynamic resource for cities like ours, as well as, all over the country. And their expert on small business in particular was on for an hour. And he basically said, there's a lot of things where you need to check with your lawyer if you're going to be trying to apply as a shotgun approach of just trying to apply for everything that you think you might be eligible for. There are ways that you might not be as strategic as you could be. And so all of that is just, slowing things down. And I personally think we really do need to start thinking again about how the city can step in and make things at least a little more available. So I know that's a tired theme already for me in particular, but I can't help but try to bring it forward because I do think this is a continuing compelling situation for our business community.
All right. Councilmember Saccharin.
Thank you, Councilmember Jackson, and thank you, Mayor. I'm just going to weigh in just from a personal experience. So we have not anecdotal information, but real information. I applied for both the small advances, the $10,000 advances on Tuesday. Never received an email confirmation from the SBA, but I did get a confirmation number at the end of my process. That was Tuesday. I have not received anything from them. I followed up with Wells Fargo, who's my understanding is one of the banks here locally that's handling the SBA loans. Followed up, I talked to them on Thursday. At that point on Thursday, they still told me that they didn't have official guidance from the SBA. They would take my name and number. They did call me back today with an email follow-up and said at this point, all applications are going to be going through their online portal and not at their local offices. That's a concern to me for a variety of reasons. One was part of this plan and proposal that we had pitched was the LDC or anywhere a business owner could walk into a facility or an office and get some of these answers taken care of. So now it's getting funneled through the Wells Fargo online service, which let's just hope that their back end loan processing is geared up and ready to go. I don't know the answer to that, but I will be applying for those loans next Monday or Tuesday. And I will let folks know how that process goes. But so far, it has been a rocky start. And I know, Mayor, you and I chatted a couple of days ago, and I said I was going to take a step back and just let's see how the process unfolds. I'm still willing to do that, but I'm not feeling very hopeful in regards to the process thus far. I just wanted to make sure that we had that on record that I've applied for 2. And so far I've received no confirmation from the federal government or SBA that they've even received the application. And I guess the second question was an easier one probably to answer. Where are we with the noise ordinance? I know we passed it, but is there a place that I could direct some of my constituents to? They've contacted me. I'm not sure if we've finalized that or posted that, but how would I find that?
Well, the clerk's office could produce a copy of the actual ordinance as it was approved. If someone, needed to report someone, we would normally call the livability office. Is it just getting a copy of it, or?
Yeah, there's no issue at this point. She was just concerned because she wanted to be able to, I think a contractor friend asked her, so she's following up with me. So where would I just get a copy of the ordinance?
Yeah. Madam Clerk, could you send out a copy of that, please?
We can, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Any other questions or anything else for the go of the order before a big weekend? Councilmember Waring.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think, as we go into this weekend, I think it's going to be the second week of April, Mr. Mayor, whenever we call this meeting with our ad hoc budget committee meeting. The city's budget is based on, in large part, income projections. And the income projections that were made in 19 is certainly far off. So if we were to take a snapshot of our income and our expenses for year to date, I'm confident the city would be showing a deficit. So we're going to have to see, where we're going to be able to cut, where we're going to be able to push, what we're going to be able to push into 2021, maybe some expenses into 2022. Take from Peter to help Paul with the city's budget, so hopefully we can keep our folk in place delivering services to our citizenry. So the idea of extra pockets that the city normally would have doesn't present itself right now. When we get involved with this ad hoc process, I sure hope all would be involved. As soon as we have a meeting, we share it with all 12 council people, because there are going to be some hard decisions to be made. The little excesses that every year on council, we would sometimes have a little surplus. The projection was done conservatively, and we would have income, a little surplus from one year to the next. From January to now, our parking revenue is down. When we passed the ordinance a couple of weeks ago, amending the no penalties on business license fees. Well, the penalties from the business license fees goes into the general fund, which helps to operate the city. Now, I voted for that, by the way, so I understood that, but the moment we did that, if all incomes were projected and we just made that one adjustment, we put ourselves in a deficit status. So it felt good to give people a break, but by the same token, pay me now, pay me later, kind of like in the oil fram filter commercial. So we all gonna need to put our caps on, thinking caps on, to see how do we, because we have to have a balanced budget by state mandate. We can't run a deficit. Thank God we have a federal government that can fund a stimulus, a $2 trillion stimulus to help small businesses, nonprofits, cities, etc. So, and I say this in a good spirit. Those of you who are new to council, where the dollars are, some people say where the bones are buried. Today, when you turn that stone over, there's not going to be any monies underneath there like they've been in previous years to those who have been on council for a number of years. So it's going to take our best of intellect to come forward with the necessary adjustments keeping our people on board and balancing this budget by 12/31. So I just kind of think as we go into the weekend, we should have a little bit of angst into making sure that we stay frugal when it comes to the dollars that the taxpayers have given us to manage on their behalf. So just food for thought. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Appel, did you have your hand up again, or is that left over?
That is a residual hand from earlier. Sorry.
Hey, Mr. Mayor, you can't see my hand. This is Gregory.
Yes, Councilmember Gregory.
And just to add on to what Councilmember Waring just said, we also have to make sure, just as important, that we protect our bond rating. Balancing our budget is extremely important. The timing of when we do that is just as important to ensure that we maintain our bond rating so that we'll be able to borrow at a much lesser price.
Understood.
Very good point.
Understood. All right, could I suggest to everyone that maybe next week won't be hopefully quite as busy, and that maybe we pace it a little bit and just have these meetings Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 3 days next week.
Yes,
That's fine with me.
Is that okay with
it's
you?
good with me.
Unless something big comes up,
That sounds good.
we can.
Sounds good.
And we have the meeting for Monday already scheduled, and it's got that matter on it of conducting our hearings and meetings and all like that. I do, we're getting some comments back from people. I think there's some misinformation about what some of what all this is all about, but we'll have a healthy discussion about that on Monday and see what we can do with it. So if there's no further business, I'd like to thank you all. Keep getting the word out, folks, to stay at home, stay distance. It is making a difference. This is a marathon. It's not a sprint. We see what's happening in other parts of the world. And I'm convinced what we're doing is making a difference and will continue to make a difference for the next little while here in Charleston and in South Carolina if we keep people distance and home whenever possible. So y'all have a great weekend. We'll see you Monday and enjoy it, but keep the distance.
Okay, you too.
I appreciate it. Yeah, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.